When I sat in the cockpit of this airplane here, Hawk, in this cockpit, I can't see the person's skin colour in the front seat. I can't see the student's skin colour. They've got a mask on, a helmet on, the flight suit on. There's no point. It doesn't bother them. This jet just kills them anyway. But if they're not good enough, the jet just flies them in. You don't get into the jet and go, by the way, I'm a African Caribbean from East End of London. When you get in the jet, there's no menu substructure for that shit. You can't do it. That's why this shit is bullshit. Okay, welcome back to Fast Performance, and today we're just going to look at the plight of the young white man. How dare you, Tim, in this time of increased diversity? But I want to bring you to something that's on my board here. Diversity, the grift that keeps on grifting. And I could talk for a long time on this. I wrote this up on the board a couple of days ago. We're going to start off by looking at the Social Mobility Committee and something that's been written about white impoverished people. I think it's a bit victim blamey, to be fair. And then we're just going to have a look at Claudine Gay, the president of Harvard University, and the trouble that she's in, and rightly so, because I do believe she's a diversity hire. So Dr. Rakib is someone I've spoken briefly to, I think, on Twitter a long time ago. He says, where do we start with this? From a member of the United Kingdom Social Mobility Commission, which is part of the Cabinet Office, I believe. This is a shortened version. He's got a longer version as well here. The reality is that some of the most left behind and underinvested communities are predominantly white British. Now, of course, I came from one of those communities. It wasn't super impoverished, don't get me wrong, but back in the 70s and 80s, my family didn't have any money. I still ended up flying military fast jets for the Royal Air Force. So social mobility for me was something that did happen, and social mobility for a lot of young people today is something that's not necessarily happening, and we want to have a look at why that might be. The reality is that some of the most left behind, underinvested communities are predominantly white British, lacking civic assets, and genuine forms of multi-generational cohesion. That's really important. White British, this is what the Social Mobility Commission says. I've got an issue with this. White British working class children face far fewer challenges than many other communities. I have an issue with this. White British, there's a massive onslaught at the moment. It's seemingly to put down the white person, as it were, whether it's in America or here. And you can see this. Netflix have got a film out, haven't they, recently, done by Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. Leave the World Behind, okay? And as I said, it's got Julia Roberts in it and some other people, but it is produced by the Obamas. And I said, I watched this last night because my wife said, let's have a watch of it. It is Christmas time after all. And I said, the issue with this then, there's a white protagonist male in it, of course, and what we find is that all these men, in whether it's adverts or film, are sort of dumbed down, and the woman is... So I've said, there's a white married woman. In this film, basically, the white married women are racist. There's a reason for this. I won't spoil the plot for you. But she secretly wants to cheat on the black male protagonist, who's the father that arrives on the scene. Black men are superior culturally and financially to white men. That's what the film is saying, because the white man is this guy who's got a truck. The black man's got like a Rolls Royce, and he's a very wealthy guy, and he's in an orchestra. And white men are inept and need strong women to save them. The whole way, Julia Roberts' character really puts down her husband the whole time. He's seen as an imbecile, never solves anything. It's produced by the Obamas. If you watch this, you'll probably see that plot line come out within the first 10 minutes, and you decide whether you want to watch the end. I would say it's unfortunate we have to kind of give this film some watch time, but there is really a conspiracy at the moment to put down white people. I think I know why it is. British working class children face far fewer challenges than many other communities. That's what it's saying today. Though they encounter snobbery, they are not plagued by racism. Of course they're not, because it's in a white British country, isn't it? I believe in 1950 there were fewer than 20,000 people from outside the UK residing in the UK that we see as minorities today. White British working class children usually speak English from birth and benefit from community ties and deeper roots in the country with the world's 6th largest economy. They've got to say that. Look how impressive the economy is and how these people should be doing better than they're not. This is victim blaming. So what is holding them back? Ingrained attitudes developed over decades cause far too many to believe that university is a pointless waste of exercise or waste of money. It's not just that. It's the way that the universities have been absolutely saturated by the whole LGBT, PPK, QIA plus community and everything else. And young people just don't want to do that. They don't want to get on in life. They don't want to have to go through this, and that's probably why people aren't going there. And also, there aren't the programs. There aren't the outreach programs that universities say, let's go and outreach to the white British working class community. They don't do that. Of course they don't do that. They're not going to get any money for that from the government. They go out to the black communities, the Asian communities, the Hindus communities, the Sikh communities. Understandably so, but we don't do it for the white communities. All right, and I'll prove that in a second with something else we'll talk about. So what Rakib has said here, and I said I'd talk about his piece here. He said, it is appalling to see this being written by a member of the social... Now, Dr. Rakib is a fantastic guy. He writes on race simulations. He's got a fantastic book out, Beyond Grievance, I believe, what the left gets wrong about race. And we'll have a look at it in a second. He says, it's appalling to see this being written by a member of the Social Mobility Commission, a public body sponsored by the Cabinet Office. The reality is some of the most left behind and underinvested communities are predominantly white British. Deprived parts of the country lack these civil assets, etc. Being white and living in the sixth largest economy in the world matters little if you're growing up in one of the most left behind towns, within one of the most poorest regions, within one of the most inter-regionally unequal societies in the industrial world. He's absolutely right. It is also incredibly patronising to suggest that England's non-white children are plagued by racism. They live in a nation with some of the strongest equality bodies in the world, robust anti-discrimination protections on the ground of race, ethnicity and religious belief. We need much better thinking on social mobility in the UK. Now, a lot of these minorities, and I don't like using the term minorities, it's like using the term BAME, it's steeped in sort of exclusion, minorities, excluding the minorities. It's an exclusive word, and we'll have a look at that in a second. However, a lot of these schools that these minorities go to don't have any white kids in. There isn't racism, apart from the racism that is inherent within the black communities. And there is a significant amount of racism within these minority communities we don't hear about, of course, because black people can't be racist to black people, apparently, or you can't even be racist to white people. It's all rubbish. Watch that film and you'll see exactly what I mean. Let's just jump on something else here. This is from Eli Steele then, who's this chap here. And he's written a very interesting piece, and I'll read you some of this, and it talks about the problems that we have with Claudine Gay, who is the president of Harvard, who seems to have done a lot of plagiarising over the 11 papers that she wrote in her entire career, apparently. So she's in a bit of trouble, but she should be, because she is a diversity hire. I think that's pretty clear for everyone. And of course now, within the university, they are very much into diversity hiring. He makes a very good point this here, as a diversity candidate himself back in the 90s. I've known people like Claudine Gay my entire life, and they are the reason why I never checked the black box on college and employment applications. If I had, I would not be a free thinking or a free individual today. I won't read all of this, but it's a very interesting one. People are often told, oh, it's nothing, just check the box and you'll get an upper hand. Indeed, I was once offered a $25,000 Martin Luther King scholarship, a lot of money in 1993, so checking the black box was tempting, yes. When I would ask why I should betray my merit or reduce my multiple races to one race box, tick, I'm not white, people like Claudine would often respond with an argument that could be summed up by one word: diversity. Thomas Sowell has something to say about diversity. However, this was a sham. From the 1960s to the 1990s, the percentage of all blacks on campuses who were from the lower economic backgrounds had fallen to the single digits. These students had been replaced by middle to upper class blacks, Africans, Caribbeans and multiracials like me, so it's not benefiting the lower impoverished working classes. We don't have that social mobility, and this is the important thing to look at. By checking the black box, I was being asked to mask over the very problems in inequities that undermined the efforts of lower class blacks. Also, university administrations could claim the pretense of racial redemption through higher enrolment numbers. So what we're saying is we're getting people into the university who are from the diverse community, but we're picking the ones that are more academically gifted, not the ones. There's no social mobility being brought in here. And we wonder why there are permanent black underclasses in nearly every major city. This was not the worst part about these encounters, which I should mention were life-altering since they affected my life directions in education and employment. I knew that if I checked the black box, administrators like Claudine Gay would feel like they owned me. They'd open the door to their esteemed institutions, and in return I would be expected to show fealty to their racial politics and ideologies. So what we're doing here is, by doing this with these people that are coming to university, we're saying you're captured within this ideology for life. Look what we've given you. That's what fealty is. You're here because we got you here. It's a form of slavery, and there's no other way for it. There's a form of, look what I've done for you. You should be grateful for me, and that's what's happening throughout these institutions now. So checking the black box on college applications would have forced me to enter what I call the minority state of mind. This is important. This is how I feel about this as well, which is why I'm careful about using that word. The word minority is often used generically along with the word majority to refer to population numbers. But the minority is also a social construct used by some on the left to enforce loyalty to the politics of a given oppressed racial group. We can see how this works now. To enter the minority state of mind therefore meant I would divorce myself from my larger American identity in order to embrace a far narrower identity based on the politics of race. And we can see why the divisions, especially in America, are happening now. We're not Americans. Obviously I'm British, but I'm saying, I've just flying with an American guy this morning on my school, and he says the same thing. Americans used to be, well, of course, all the Americans are immigrants, of course. It used to be a very, very diverse mix, but of American people. And now what we're seeing is it's no longer an American identity. It's a far narrow identity-based identity, in effect. It's based on the politics of race, ideally so, because of course it's all new little Marxists, isn't it? It's new Marxism, in effect, that's come in, and that's exactly what we're experiencing now, not only in America but also in the UK, but for a lesser extent. People have mocked me, saying that I give far too much importance to that black box. I mean, this annoys me. This is what a real man looks like here. He's saying, no, I could have done that and taken the easy road. I'm going to take the hard... How many lives do you have? I do this in my life. I'm going to take the hard road. It's going to suck. It does in many, many places. And I'll talk about alcohol as we get a bit closer to Christmas, because I know people really want me to talk about alcohol and the problems I had, and it's been about a year now. But that harder road has meaning. The harder road has substance. It has a texture to it that the easier road doesn't have. That's all I'm saying about taking the more difficult path. And this man, Eli, understands this, of course. If I'd indicated black on my college applications, it would have opened the door to black scholarships, black-only orientations, black fraternities, black housing, black-orientated majors, black student associations, black this. How could I have gone through these experiences without becoming beholden to the politics of blackness? I mean, that whole paragraph there starts with, in my case, that meant embracing a radicalized victim mindset. I wanted to read that bit before this bit, in which everything is defined by slavery, segregation, disparities, and racism. Can we see why this is so destructive? Can we see what that social commission is doing there when it talks about the young white person? It may as well be talking about the young black person. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're still dividing these people, and we're keeping them divided. I'm finishing in a second. So for me to check that black box was to move off the merit track and onto the race track, where people like Claudine excelled. She is perhaps the most successful black to walk this path, but she is not a free individual. She's captured, of course she is. She put her emphasis on her skin and not her abilities, and it is no wonder why all this evidence of incompetence, racial essentialism and plagiarism are now coming out. And there's a lot of things coming out about Claudine Gay, and the plagiarism seems to heavily have plagiarized her academic material that she published. As bad as that is, the worst thing she did was lead so many people of our race down the dead end of racial essentialism. People talk about how Claudine hurt Asians and Jews. People like her hurt blacks far more, and that can never be forgiven. By contrast, my refusal to check the race box meant that nobody could hold a claim over me like they do with every black, like Clarence Thomas. I'm a free individual, and the only thing I owe is gratitude to the many people who helped me as I pursue the path of merit. That's some emotional A-level shit right there. For a man to write that, I've got nothing but absolute respect for this man to put this in writing like this. And it got picked up by Newsweek and some other people. And if we want to have a look at... Oh, there's the article here. I haven't seen this article here. But that's the full text, guys. And what I'll do is I could have just read that. What I would do is I would take this, the header for this, the link, the URL. I'll put it in the description. You can go and read it for yourself. And if you want to see the issues that are having with Claudine Gay, then with the plagiarism, I did comment on one of these yesterday. Was this one here? I said, doesn't look good. Incredible investigative work. And what's happened is someone's really gone in and they've just really looked at all the papers that she's written, and they've come across and they can see that she's copied and pasted a load of text. Why? Because she's a diversity hire. She has no pride in herself. She's using her skin colour. I mean, we've said this for a long time. And also, don't forget, as I said there with the UK, one of the issues that we do have, of course, is the fact that we have a significant amount of immigration. I think it was 1 million people over the last year came into the UK. It's not that we have an issue with immigration in the UK, it's that we have an issue with the rate of immigration. So hit the comments, guys. Let me know what you think about this. A bit of a random one I thought I'd throw out there, but I read some stuff. I thought I'd share it with you. Really, we know diversity is the grift that keeps on grifting. I'll show you one more thing. Anyway, for people to make money out of their community, isn't it? This is a black program. This is for black, Asian, minority ethnic people and women who are underrepresented in the airline industry. Of course, if you just inverted this, if you look at Charlie Munger with Berkshire Hathaway and Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger would say, let's invert this and see what happens. If we just crossed all those out and said, white people, let's help white people get into the airlines, you wouldn't allow it. So why are we allowing something that says black, Asian, minority ethnic and women are underrepresented? So we're going to have a scheme that allows these people, and you're going to pay for that scheme, but we're going to have a scheme that it shouldn't be allowed. This is not merit-based at all. This is purely you achieving something based on the colour of your skin that you were born in. That to me is pure racism, and it's there. Why is this allowed to happen? You know I'm frustrated by it, because all I ever did was train people based on their merit, how good they are. In the cockpit, when I sat in the cockpit of this airplane here, Hawk, in this cockpit, I can't see the person's skin colour in the front seat. I can't see the student's skin colour. They've got a mask on, a helmet on, the flight suit on. There's no point. It doesn't bother them. This jet just kills them anyway. If they're not good enough, the jet just flies them in. You don't get into the jet and go, by the way, I'm a African Caribbean from East End of London. When you get in the jet, there's no menu substructure for that shit. You can't do it. That's why this shit is bullshit and it shouldn't be allowed. It's absolute nonsense, and the fact the Air Force embraced it, obviously, you know, I lost a job over that. Absolute threaders, not in the Air Force, it was another company I was working for because I called them out on it. Guys, just appreciate it. Hit the comments. Hopefully that's all right, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Really appreciate Tim Day's fast performance.